evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this evening's edition of Beyond the Headlines. It's December 1st, so we are breaking into the Christmas season as it was, and today was a day we probably heard about a lot of goodies which should be in keeping with the Christmas season. But as I start every week, thank you so very much for giving up part of your Monday evening to be with us. So whether you're looking on GBN television, whether you're listening GBN radio, or logged on to any of our social media platforms, thank you. It's a pleasure having you, and we certainly look forward to an exciting conversation this evening. We are examining the presentation of the 2026 budget, as it is locally called. It's the estimate of revenues and expenditure, which is the jargon of the Ministry of Finance. And we have with us the Permanent Secretary for the Ministry of Finance, Mr. Mike Sylvester. Mike, welcome to Beyond the Headlines.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to be here.
Wonderful. We also have with us Mr. Jamari Max Hypolite, who is an accountant and lead of one of our local private sector companies. Max, welcome.
Good night, Colin. Good night to the viewers, and of course, looking forward to the conversation here tonight.
Absolutely. And online, we have our former Minister of Finance, Anthony Boatswain. Mr. Boatswain, welcome back to Beyond the Headlines. We certainly
Thank you. It's a pleasure being on the program once again.
Wonderful.
Company of my fellow workmate, Mike. Good to see you.
Yes, boss.
And that is exactly what I heard. Yeah, I expected to hear. Yes, boss. Mike.
It's good seeing you as well.
A pleasure seeing you. Looking forward.
Mike, let me just kick off with you. The minister, as he launched into the budget, he gave just an overview as to where Grenada stands economically. And if you can just summarize that, because I think that really is a platform from which one has to read a budget. You can't, you must do some self-appraisal to see where you are, take stock of where you are and how you can move forward. So if you can just share some of the highlights as to Grenada's current economic position as relayed by Minister Cornwall.
All right. Well, thank you very much. And again, let me just say I'm happy to be here. Of course, I'm happy to be together with this distinguished panelists. And good evening to you and your guests. And I want to begin with the words of the minister. The minister described the economic activity in 2025 as remarkable. And if you were to take that from the context of the recent economic assessment by the IMF, which was done in October of this year, the IMF basically projects that the government, Grenada will grow by Grenada will grow this year by 4.4%, building on the strong performance last year of 3.3%, despite the impact of Hurricane Beryl. So that is quite telling in the sense that the economy continues to accelerate, even despite what is happening around us in terms of the tenuous macroeconomic environment and so on. So that is what is happening on that front now. In terms of our own assessment, and the minister also mentioned that as well, we are projecting growth to be much higher. In fact, we are much more optimistic than the IMF in terms of our development and prospects. Right. We are projecting growth in the region of 6.2% this year, driven by reconstruction activities, burial reconstruction activities, basically construction in particular, and the related sectors. So you're talking about wholesale and retail, you're talking about transportation and storage and communications and so on, and of course a rebound of the fisheries, marine sector, if you want to call it that. So that is in terms of this year. Next year, of course, the IMF is projecting 3.2%. We are projecting 4.1%. The difference between what the IMF is projecting and what we are projecting is based on the treatment of construction. We, for example, are using the methodology that we have used historically, taught by the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank. That has been the methodology where they use construction imports, where they use the sale of construction materials and so on to estimate what is the impact of construction on the sector. The IMF is basically arguing that a lot of the construction activities, or some of the construction activities that are taking place in Grenada, because of their low domestic content, that they're not having the value-added impact that we are projecting. So, for example, the Livera project, that's one of the examples that they've given. If you look at the concessions on that, it is a concession project, so it's one of the CBI projects. If you look at the labor content on that project, a lot of the work, well, not a lot of the lion's share of the workers, they are foreign workers and so on. So they have, in a sense, discounted the impact. So that's where we sort of differ in terms of the projection, but we are going with the methodology that we have used historically in the past, and that we've been trained in by the IMF, by the ECCB, and so on. So that is in terms of real sector developments. In terms of the inflation, inflation continues to decline, or to inflation pressures continue to ease. We are projecting inflation this year about 0.7%, and that we project over the medium term inflation would be low and stable at around 1%. Of course, government interventions have helped. So you have a lot of the subsidies on electricity and fuel, and the removal of VAT on basic food items and so on, which have helped to sort of keep the inflation pressures down, and that has been helpful. On the fiscal side, very quickly, the situation is better than we had anticipated at the time of the budget presentation this year in March. So we had a deficit in March, for example, projected deficit of 337 million thereabout. Right. We have a much smaller deficit of $279.2 million. So it means that we are better in terms of our position on the deficit and also on the primary balance, which is basically our total revenue and grants less our total primary spending. Right. And what it means is that because of the strong performance of our revenues in particular, and lower than expected recurrent expenditure, right? Despite having higher capital expenditure related to burial and so on, we are in a much better position fiscally than we have anticipated, based on what has happened this year. In terms of the financial sector, of course, the financial sector continues to be liquid. In terms of NPLs and so on, that continue to decline, as well as, of course, the issue of profitability. The banks are still profitable, even though the profitability has declined in this year. On the external sector, so the balance of payments and so on, of course, there is a widening of the current account balance because of the burial impact. So you have more imports and so on coming in and so on, and that is showing a temporary widening, but we do expect that will, of course, narrow as we go forward and so on. So in a nutshell, we have a very strong economic position. Of course, going in 2026, you see a lot of the sectors continue to grow. Construction in particular will continue to drive growth, and even though the burial construction is winding down, you see construction related to Polaris and to some of the both public and private sector projects will basically step in and continue that momentum in terms of construction.
I noted with interest Minister mentioning that food inflation was going down. Right. He highlighted also unemployment heading downwards. What would you say is responsible? Is it the government subsidies that's responsible for the reduction in food inflation, as was highlighted? And also, which sectors would be responsible for the unemployment decline that was pointed out?
Right. So inflation, broadly speaking, is declining. So if you look at global inflation, that has been coming down, right? And of course, we are price takers. So basically, what happens there will eventually get to us here. So that is part of the reason why. But and of course, the interventions by government is helping. So, for example, the removal of VAT on over 20 basic items is helping to keep the price down. The removal of if we talk about fuel, for example, the petrol tax was $5.50. That was removed about 2 years ago and has not been reinstated. So we're still paying $3.50 per gallon, when in a sense it should be. And
we're grateful for the $3.50. just leave it right there. No.
So those things are actually keeping inflation down generally, but in terms of food inflation is really what's happening on the basic food items, in terms of VAT and something.
All right.
On the unemployment, I mean, the unemployment, as you say, it has come down quite significantly. The minister, for example, mentioned that if you look at the period 2021, second quarter, the unemployment rate there was 16.6%. And that has fallen dramatically or transformatively to 7.55% right, by the end of October. That is significant. If you look at youth unemployment there as well, you're looking at 42%, for example, a decline to 20.2%, more than basically cutting by more than half. And of course, if you go a little deeper, you look at how that has impacted both male and female unemployment, for example, where you have male unemployment now about 5.9% and female about 9.3%. When you look at the sectors and so on that's driving that, of course, construction heavily, because a lot of what is driving the economy now is construction. So you have a lot of these jobs. And it's not just a one-off construction, because you could have growth where you have one big project that will drive construction, but what you have is a sustained activity over time that in that sector, for example, and of course there are knock-on sectors, right? So I mentioned transportation, I mentioned, for example, wholesale and retail and so on. You have a lot of employment in that. In addition to that, of course, because of the training and so on, skills training and so on, you have people finding jobs. If you look at what's happening, in the creative economy, for example, if you look at what's happening in the MSME sector, where you have government supporting those sectors and so on, you have people starting businesses, you have people creating their own employment in a sense. That in a sense is driving the unemployment rate.
Well, we certainly will go into some of these sectors, but Max, let me just open up with you. Because we have the platform, economy performing remarkably end of good. As you listen to the budget, just some of the overall highlights that just jumped out at you as you reflect on it.
Okay, all right. Good night. First off, again, good night, Colin. Good night to your viewers and listeners. And I know people most times end with a vote of thanks, but of course, I say thanks to GBN for having me here tonight to participate in a very important national conversation regarding the budget. And as much as I'm here to give my 2 cents, from the look of your panel here, Mr. Sylvester and Mr. Boatswain, I too may leave here more informed than I came. So definitely looking forward to the conversation. First off, I mean, a couple of things jumped out at me from the superficial front. And just a cosmetic, I think the minister did a fairly good job presenting the budget. It's no easy task. It's presenting and speaking on numbers for close to 3 hours. And believe you me, I know that all too well. So it's no easy task. I think he presented it well. It covers a wide area of the economies and touch on several sectors as a good budget ought to do. So on that front, good. The foundation was laid, and one thing that stood out to me and gives credence, I think, to the 2026 numbers is their performance in 2025, particularly from a revenue standpoint. The government's achieved or projected, I should say, to achieve, because 2025 is not over. Right. I know they did a year to date, I think, up to Q3, September 2025, and then they project how the rest of the year will end. From the latest estimate, or the projected estimate to end in 2025, they are looking to end 1% above the revenue target set out for 2025. So I think that's a good achievement. The fact that you achieve what you said you'll do in March, even from a private sector organization, that's a wonderful achievement.
And that was interesting, because what we saw as presented was that the revenues estimated to be above what was projected, and the expenditure estimated below. I mean, I think that's if my household was running that way.
If you're in a business and that's your achievement, your KPIs, if your bonus is linked to your KPIs, I can only imagine what the bonus period will be. But so that's
good. That's Mike's bonus.
That's. I hope I see him sometime in January to share in that bonus. But that's a that's a wonderful achievement, and more so the current surplus that they projected. I mean, we speak about deficit quite a bit, and we judge it after. To me, as the deficit is not an issue, where so the primary focus should be the current surplus, right? So when projected our current surplus, they see I think of 86 million current surplus. Just to be clear, your current surplus is your current revenue less your current expenditure, and your current expenditure is your day-to-day operations. I think it's very important for Grenadians to understand, and I know some understand, but the wider cross-section of the Grenadian population understand the difference between recurring and capital. So we had a current surplus projected of 86 million this year. It's looking to end at 176 or 186, thereby doubling. So it's in a really good position. I say that performance gives credence to the numbers that we're looking ahead on. More so, what also stood out to me in terms of the numbers, and again I'll go into the overall story, but just playing with the numbers. First, the government, when they're presenting budgets, they don't only look at the immediate year following. For instance, the 2026 year, they project 2 years in advance, right? I know some companies, they project 5 years in advance. I think 2 to 3 years is a fair look ahead, and it gives a good snapshot into the future. So in 2025, when the government presented the 2025, in March 2025, when the government presented the 2025 budget, they also gave the 2026 numbers. Correct? And if you match up the numbers that the minister presented this morning, and you look at it to what you presented in March, you see a level of consistency. That is important. For the revenue part, this projection is 4% above what you projected in March, which shows there's no major swing. The story is consistent, the government is on track, and they're heading into the direction that they want to head. Overall, it's part of a bigger story, Vision 75 and the map, the development plan. So this shows that they're on the right track, with the numbers being aligned to what they present. Some other good things in the budget is the support to GIDC. That's from a private sector and development standpoint. I think GIDC as a business support organization, its development is really important to the overall development of Grenada. I was in St. Kitts recently, and we were speaking about how they develop MSMEs within the region in a workshop hosted by OECS and the WTO and so forth. And business support organizations stood out as needed within the region to give support to small businesses. There are a lot of small businesses with wonderful ideas to drive and grow the economy, but they do not have that particular skill set to go to the bank, and sometimes that's a whole deterrent. I'm going to sit in an office, and the formal, the Rasta man on the street to go and sit in an office is different. So these business support organizations, when they get your plan, they can guide you and let you know what's available, right? So I think that support is very much important. Overall, from a stack standpoint, we don't see no major change. That remains the same. However, I believe the government could have get a little bit more creative on that front. I know it's not good when people hear accountants start talking about getting creative.
Well, that's almost like oxymoron.
That's not that normally follows some jail time somehow, right? But I think in terms of, and I say this, I mean, the barrel and the free barrels around this time is very much welcome. I know Grenadians are, they've been asking for it for several times. We like the free barrel around this time. But I think time for us to consider alternative actions, or alternative incentives, I should say, such as VAT-free days, right? Because the barrel is for if people source certain things outside. VAT-free days will help drive the local business and drive the local economy, right? That's a 15% discount basically of goods across the board. And if some business add to that, the government giving 15, I give 15, that's a 30% discount. So that on the pockets of Grenadian will do a lot as well. So that's drive local business. Because now, I mean, to benefit for the VAT-free, I'll have to send and stock up on a barrel overseas instead of shopping at the local supermarket or the local shops as well. So that in terms of, we need to look at the ED card, the launch of the ED card on the airport next year. That would save a lot of travelers' time.
Well, I noticed that there was a guarded mention of that, because this is promised 2 years now.
Well, I say the minister says looking to launch, and I believe the Prime Minister, when he spoke at a town hall in Grenville as well a couple of weeks ago, he actually pulled it up and went through and showed the platform is live. So with that demonstration, coupled with the minister's declaration today, I believe that 2026 we will see that, and if not, believe you me, come next year we'll be championing and asking why that wasn't launched. So that, I think, is very important as well. Again, what I didn't see too, most ways the how. The minister spent a lot of time, I think, looking back, but there's a budget to look ahead. And he had the opportunity not only look ahead for next year, but look ahead for 3 years. And the how we will land that. Construction is growing, but as you know, we have a labor shortage within the country. Right. How do we plan to address that? All right, that wasn't mentioned. I think that is crucial, because if you look at it now, even in the government even from a government standpoint, they have in 2025 they have over, I think, 1,600 vacant positions. And in 2026, they're budgeting for, I think, close to 1,775 or close to 1,800 vacant positions. So if you have all these vacant positions with even the government, and the overall, I think the government overall staffing and the manpower summary is close to 6,500 employees. So if you have 6,500 employees budgeted for in total, 1,800 of which is vacant, that's close to 30% of your overall manpower you have vacant. And the fact that unemployment is low, that shows that the population, we need people. Right. Because it's not like if unemployment is high, so you say, okay, hey, you're filling these vacant positions tomorrow. Unemployment is low, so in terms of the labor shortages, that and how we address such a crucial point, I think that was missing an opportunity to land on that powerfully.
Okay. Tony, let me just hear from you in terms of what your overall impressions were as you listened to Minister Cornwall this morning.
Once again, thank you very much, Colin, for having me on your program. And I must indeed say that I am at a disadvantage with regards to the permanent secretary, in the sense that I'm not privileged to have a copy of the estimate of revenue and expenditure, which is actually the budget. Yeah? What we are discussing really is the budget statement, or the budget speech, which should give some insight into the content of the much larger document, which is the legal document, the estimates of revenue and expenditure. And invariably, the budget speech should provide an accurate assessment of what is contained in the estimates of revenue and expenditure. Mr. Hypolite made a very important point, that the budget speech focused primarily or too much on past achievements and not really on forward-looking, not really looking at what we intend to achieve in the future. I think that is one of the weaknesses I find in the budget. Also, I must say that I have looked at previous budget speech presented by various ministers, Minister Burke, Dr. Mitchell, Boatswain, and myself. And in every document, we do have appendices which contain statistical data, so at least one do not have to refer to the main document to make a proper assessment or to compare past achievements and what you are planning to achieve now. And I think this document, this budget presentation, was a bit weak in the sense that we do not have any comparative data. For example, you give what you intend to do in 2026, but you did not say how that compared to what was done in 2025. Yeah? Simple. Budget 1.9 billion. What was last year's budget? And how does that compare to what was presented last year? When you look at your capital expenditure, how does that compare to what you budgeted last year? What was the shortfall? And why are you budgeting this amount this year? You see, so there is a lack of information that will allow anyone, a layman, to compare what you have achieved last year and what you intend to achieve in this budget. So that is one of the weaknesses I find in the budget presentation. Second, a budget is an estimate. It is not an exact science, and therefore there are variables that will impact on the actual results of what you present. And in this regard, developments in the international and regional economies will impact significantly on what you present. And the budget speech made no, but I didn't see any reference to developments in the global economy, the regional economy, and how that will impact the budget. And we know as a fact what is happening right now. Changes in the geopolitical dynamics, the US-Venezuela conflict, the different posture now being taken by the United States of America in terms of embracing nationalism and foregoing globalization. How will that impact our budget in terms of tourism and other issues? So I believe that, notwithstanding the fact that the budget is a good budget in terms of the macroeconomic achievements, I believe it is wanting in certain respects. Let us look at the macroeconomic achievements. Very good in terms of growth rates, but I do not understand the reason why the Ministry of Finance is projecting a higher growth rate than what the IMF projected, given those external developments which could impact negatively on our growth. Inflation down to 1%. I think this is a bit idealistic. No information is given as to exactly what will contribute to a 1% inflation. When the trend out there, as someone said, it is downward, but I do not see that. I do not see inflation going below 2%. And reasons must be advanced as to why you are telling us that it will be as low as 1%. Unemployment, again, very good. Moving from 14.9% to 7%, that's very good. I cannot doubt that figure, because you see, some of us do not understand how unemployment is calculated. Not everyone who is not employed is unemployed. And therefore, if I was in the labor force and I decide I'm no longer in the labor force, I'm not looking for work anymore, I cannot be classified as unemployed. And therefore, the unemployment rate would fall, not only because you have created employment, but because people decide to leave the labor force. Right? Maybe they cannot find the job they want, so they leave the labor force. But in essence, we must understand that the unemployment that exists now is primarily what I call structural, in the sense that there are jobs, but we do not have people who are qualified to take those jobs. And I was hoping that the budget will give serious attention as to how we can break this bottleneck. So at least we can have a more porous labor force, because right now it is compartmentalized, that certain people cannot move from one activity to the other, especially in the construction industry. There's a need for skilled labor coexisting with unskilled labor. And therefore, I believe a strategic plan should have been prepared as to how we can get more of our people into the employed labor market. Mm-hmm. So overall, I think the budget is a relatively good one, in the sense that there are no new taxes, because for me, once a budget does not provide provisions for new taxes, I will consider it a good budget, because our people will not have to put out more.
Right.
to put what they have to put in. So in essence, it's a good budget, no taxes. I like the idea of extending the barrel for the poorer classes of people. That's good. And maintaining those concessions that were previously granted. Again, that is looking backward. I was expecting to see more of such concessions moving forward, rather than belaboring what you have already given in the past year.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that. Mike, I don't know if you give you the opportunity. I know that you are well positioned to have had sight of the actual budget prior to today. But I can vindicate you because I have had sight of the budget because it's online on the Ministry of Finance website. I couldn't go through the 700 pages.
1,086.
Right. But did have sight. But just some of the things on employment that both Max and Tony referenced, the withdrawal from the labor market as compared to the drop in unemployment, if that's something you can comment on, as well as the challenges for some new initiatives, just to help to jumpstart or to continue to catapult the economy in the positive direction. Yeah,
thank you very much. I mean, I want to comment on what Minister Boatswain said about the documents and so on, because the budget speech is a statement by the minister, and he rightly said that that is a presentation on the estimates of revenue and expenditure, right? And all of the things that he mentioned, we have, in fact, those things were published almost more than a week before the budget was actually read by the minister on the Ministry of Finance website. As part of the Public Finance Management Act. So there is that estimate of revenue and expenditure that we usually present with all the figures, all the votes from vote 1 to 64, the revenue estimates and so on. We also have a document that is called a medium-term economic and fiscal strategy report, right? That details the macroeconomic context in detail. I mean, the budget speech says that more details on the macroeconomic context can be found in that document. And so I don't know if the minister didn't have the opportunity to review that document before, because we also have there, for example, the debt management strategy, right? For the period, again, 2026 to 2028, we detail how government is going to borrow, how government is going to finance, what strategy government is going to use to ensure that their debt sustainability and so on. We also presented part of that, the annual debt report for 2024, right? Which basically then tells you what is the debt stock, what is the composition by external, by domestic, all of those information that's there.
But let me just, if I am, and I can verify, right?
So you know it's there.
Yeah, I know it's there because I saw it. Yes, I can verify. But we observed again in terms of a deficit budget, and that's why you were introducing that. And the conversation by the minister is that it's going to be financed through reserves. What challenges do that present? Will it exhaust our reserves? What is the strategy to build back our reserves? So
before I go there, let me also deal with the question of the unemployment. Right. So the Grenada's economy, in terms of the what you call the labor force, right? You have about 86,000 people in Grenada that are about 15 years and above, right? Of that, you have those persons who are what you call economically inactive, and you have those that are economically active, right? So of that 86,000, right, you basically have almost 32,000 people who are economically inactive, and so you're talking about students, you're talking about people who are retired, you're talking about people who are perhaps disabled and they can't really work, right? They're bedridden and whatever the case may be, right? You're talking about that category there. Right, and you're talking about 52,000 people thereabout who are actually unemployed, or they are employed, right? And that is what is called the participation rate, in terms of the and what you use to measure the unemployment and the employment rate, and that is about 62%, and that rate has not changed significantly. So in other words, what you see in terms of the employment trends is not because people are leaving the labor force; it's because people are actually working. You have right now basically just about 4,000 people.
Can I I say, because say age 15 and above, but we now made school mandatory to 18.
Right.
Isn't that some that is now getting withdrawn from the active labor group?
No. So because what I'm saying, if you look at how they structure the unemployment rate, as I said, it's 15 to 15 and over, right?
Yeah.
And then within that, they look at those persons who are economically inactive. And if you're a student, if you're in school, when they do the assessment and so on, they don't put you as part of the labor force because you're in school. So if you have persons who are, because of the change in the age, they are in school. In a sense, what it can do is reduce the participation rate because you go have less people now in the labor force.
Correct.
Right. But the point I'm making is that when you look at the unemployment number of unemployment people in Grenada right now, basically talking about 4,000 people, right? And about 50,000 people basically are part of the employment, what you call employed. And if you look at that over the period, you see that number is increasing. So in a sense, it's not driven by people leaving, or they're disinterested, or they're not disinterested, right?
No longer seeking employment.
Right, or they're not interested in work, or they're not encouraged to work and so on. So they follow the labor force and so on. It's not really driven by that. On the measures, and I mean, first of all, the Christmas buy program is a new measure. So it's not only old measures, right? That's a new measure. And then, of course, you have, as I said, the other measures that are there. Now, if the economy moves to a stage where you don't have the kind of pressures that you're having with respect to inflation and those kinds of things, because remember, inflation is the price of things will continue to increase. What inflation, in a sense, means is that is either increasing at a very high rate or increasing at a lower rate, right? So 1% doesn't mean that prices are falling. It means that the prices are, whatever they are now, they are increasing by that rate. Yeah? So you will still have high prices, but what you find, as I said, is that you may have issues, for example, with what you consider as a basket of goods that is used to actually deal with the unemployment or the inflation system, and so that is something that over time you have to improve it, because what will become a basic item now would be something that perhaps was never there. So like cell phone and data and those kind of things, those were not items that were part of the basket before, so they become part of the basket and so. So yes, there could be issues with the unemployment, the inflation rate, but to say that it can't be one. The method we are using, and of course we are projecting into the future. You will have degrees of error and so on, but at the same time, the information that we have is based on the methodology that has been used consistently over time to estimate exactly what the inflation rate is for the period, and of course what we project going forward. Okay. Let me go to the deficit. So the question you're asking, you just remind me on the deficit in particular. What? Yeah,
there is a deficit budget being presented financing again, and the question is the financing.
Right. So the deficit financing, the government suspended the fiscal rules because of Hurricane Beryl, right? So what that means is allow government to spend more to be able to respond, because of course
the suspension continued because
because so that's what I'm saying.
It was since probably COVID that
no. It was suspended after Beryl, right? So suspended after Beryl, and the government has clearly stated that we are committed to the fiscal rules, and we're going to return to the fiscal rules by 2027 because the reconstruction and recovery period will take basically 3 years, right? And you see that's happening right after Hurricane Beryl. You had a lot of the relief and initial reconstruction activities. This year, for example, over $100 and something million was spent on Build Back Better housing and so on. You still have a lot of housing and so on to continue. You still have in Carriacou, for example, with Jetty, you still have a number of things that need to continue. A restoration of playing fields and so on. You still have some of the things that were damaged that you need to continue. So that we expect will be completed next year. And then you basically go back to the fiscal rules where you don't have that high level of capital spending and recurrent spending. right? And then you basically start to build back a reserve. So to answer your question, the reserves would not be depleted by the $257.3 million, $2 million that you're going to draw down this year. This year, for example, sorry, next year. This year, for example, we also drew down reserves to deal with the deficit, and that is the strategy until you get back to where you start accumulating reserve again by running a primary balance of 1.5% of GDP, and that is the primary balance that will allow you to reduce your debt and to build buffers and so on, including, for example, the buffers that we set aside as part of the contingency fund, which now stands at $61.6 million at the ECCB.
How has been the performance of, because the combination is really the reserves and local and regional instruments. How has been the performance of those instruments in terms of raising revenue for government?
Excellent, excellent. I mean, this year we didn't touch the reserve at all. That's the contingency fund, because we utilize other instruments, and that's the thing about Grenada. We have several instruments that we can use. We got the CRIF payouts, for example, so that was very, very, very helpful in terms of not actually depleting any significant reserve in that period. We had and are working towards now an instrument that is called a catastrophe deferred drawdown option. It's an insurance mechanism with the World Bank, where, for example, you get a $20 million, for example, in terms of a contingency line of credit, and it only becomes a debt when you draw it down. So we drew down that after burial, and we are now working to restore that, to have that there. So in case we have another disaster, we can then perhaps draw on that. And you can draw on that either as a whole, or you can draw on that for a localized disaster. So if you have something in St. Patrick, God forbid, for example, you can just take down a $5 million to deal specifically with that and leave the balance there for something bigger, right? And then, of course, we have within the budget, there's a mechanism for you to reallocate from lower priority areas to higher priority areas and so on. So we have a nice layered approach to dealing with our response to a natural disaster and so on. And I think for that, in fact, I think we're leading in the region in terms of our approach to that. We have received significant commendation for that particular approach.
Okay, all right. It's time for us to take our first break, viewers and listeners. So we'll take our break and we'll come back and continue discussing the budget presentation 2026.
Asian Spa and Wellness Cafe, nestled in the serene surroundings of Le Fableau, Calivini Bay, St. George, is the perfect spot to unwind and relax after a stressful event or when you wish to spoil yourself in the most comfortable and relaxing atmosphere. They offer many different massage modalities, including thigh hammer, washer and cupping, signature thigh deep tissue massage, also facials to depuff and tighten pores, deep cleanse full body, hair and nail treatments and more. Take a walk down to the cafe for authentic Thai breakfasts and delicious traditional dishes. Choose from our special mixed drinks, both hot and cold. Opens daily. Visit Asian Spa and Wellness Cafe today, Le Fableau, Calivini Bay, St. George, because you will not regret you did.
Mobility, a common theme woven into the very fabric of human history. From ancient wanderers to modern explorers, our instinct to move, to seek something greater, and to grow has always driven us forward. Imagine a journey into pathways of boundless opportunities and endless possibilities. A collective future where the vibrant rhythms of the Caribbean, rich culture, and welcoming community create unforgettable experiences. Beyond citizenship by investment, we believe in our collective investment of time, resources, and energy that fosters innovation, creates jobs, and enriches lives, driving the growth of an entire nation. The Investment Migration Agency Grenada boasts over a decade of exceptional service and remains committed to guiding you toward global mobility and economic freedom through investment. Your journey becomes our shared story of progress and prosperity. This is an invitation to be part of something greater, something enduring. Begin your journey at imagrenada.gd. I am a Grenada. Unlock the possibilities.
Have you heard about the new Softweave bathroom tissue with total hygiene? As hygiene and safety have taken center stage, our bathroom tissue is now manufactured with 3 different technologies to offer the best protection for you and your family. UVC light technology for a safe and effective disinfection process, eliminating 99.9% of microorganisms. Also, production at high temperatures, killing all types of germs and bacteria. And it's pH controlled with delicate fibers to prevent irritation for even sensitive skin. Softweave Total Hygiene Bathroom Tissue, available in supermarkets and shops island-wide. Visit Softweave Caribbean Facebook or Instagram pages for more information.
Sisson's got you covered this Christmas. From ceiling to floor, from outside to inside, Sisson's is formulated to bring out our true Caribbean flair. Get 20% off Sisson's Ceiling White, Easy Clean, and Sisson's Aquaflow paints. Plus, every Sisson's purchase is an entry to win the grand prize of a 65-inch TV. Just scan the QR code, attach a picture of your receipt, and you are entered to win. Promotion runs October 1st to December 20th, 2025. Sisson's, good looks that last.
This holiday season, let the Monica Benoit Wonderland of Lights lead the way to Christmas at the Point. Starting November 30th, the Quarantine Point Recreational Park transforms into a glowing wonderland with dazzling light displays that are the true showstoppers of the season. Take a magical tuk-tuk tunnel ride through twinkling arches. Explore Santa's grotto, cozy up with a picnic blanket under the stars, and savor delicious eats from local vendors. Entry is just $5 for walk-ins, $10 per carload, and $20 for premium carload parking. Plus, grab a cozy picnic blanket for only $40 and enjoy the season in style. Special pricing applies for New Year's Eve. Visit our Instagram or Facebook pages at Rotary Club of Grenada Events for more details. It's holiday fun for the entire family every night from 5 p.m. till midnight, and it all supports the charitable work of the Rotary Club of Grenada. Christmas at the Point. When the sun sets, the wonder begins. Mark your calendars. It all begins November 30th.
Viewers and listeners, we're discussing the 2026 budget presentation delivered by Minister Cornwall this morning. Max, I know you wanted to just chat a little bit about the deficit budget, because this is a new thing to us as Grenadians, hearing a budget being presented and it's being presented as a deficit.
You know, as I said earlier, Colin, I think the important part, or the first part we should look at, is a current account, right. is a current surplus, right? And that is showing a surplus. The borrowing is for capital expenditure. Right. And I want to liken that to even someone, personally in your home. Most times, when you want to buy some of a capital nature, a fridge, a couch, remodel a house,
a car.
Right. These capital spend are outside of your annual, outside of your monthly salary. So let's land that. You do a budget for December, right? You normally have a surplus. But for instance, in December now you want to buy a new fridge because your old fridge at 10 years now it's due, right? You have 2 options. Is that you draw down from your savings, I trust you had savings over the period of time, or the next option is you go to a finance institution and seek a loan. Or is December you may get a bonus, so that may come as a form of a grant, basically. So I want to liken that to kind of show persons that, hey, even in your own home and your own personal space, from time to time we have deficits, right. But that doesn't necessarily signal a bad thing. Right. The issue for so is if we have a deficit, let's say for the current account, the current surplus, that means your expense is way more than your income, and if that continues, then you might end up on ANA or in front of the judge over time. So that is something that you have to remedy, and I think an important part again is that last year was a deficit, this year a deficit, and I believe 2027, however, is projected to return to overall surplus in 2027 and 2028. And again, the point I made earlier, the fact that the credible performance in 2025 and the consistent performance that we're looking to see in 2026, I'm comforted that the fact that the government is looking to return to that surplus position, as you see, the position that Grenadians know and love in 2027 and 2028, but understand that capital spend, heavy construction, heavy development, these things will require a deficit. And you do this thing from time to time. You see, we know a Project Polaris is looking to break ground in 2026. We have other significant construction taking place in the document. You mentioned the document online. Not too sure how Mr. Boatswain didn't get it. We have to relook at that. But it's a 1,086-page document online that outlines significant, what's happening. And you see the construction next to the schools, right? The St. David's schools. I see St. David's school is being constructed. The construction that broke ground here. We have St. Patrick. We have St. Joseph Convent, Grenville. I see. So all that level of construction and the rehabilitation of hospitals as well too. So all that spend, right? It may not be facilitated by the current surplus in 1 year, but the fact that you have drawdowns and the fact that you could secure funding, it orders well for the overall.
And certainly understand and appreciate the explanation you give. So my words would have been an investment is what is being made.
It's a long-term investment.
And because I'm in the field of education, I would say it's like paying for a university degree. You're not earning yet, but moving forward, you shall.
Because I must call that here, because I'm in the field of quoting. It's like beautifying your home for Christmas time. It's an investment in the long term. I must plug that in here.
Very well. Yeah. Minister Boatswain, and I'm saying Minister Boatswain, so that we're following the U.S. model. I noted with interest the call by the minister for a sustainable wage bill and an appeal to unions to settle negotiations quickly. In hearing this, what was your takeaway? I mean, I had something popped into my head immediately, but I found it very interesting in the budget presentation, his signaling the need for a sustainable wage bill and working towards settling union negotiations quickly.
Well, Colin, I do not see any inconsistency there. Settling, wage negotiation, I think, is critical. Yeah, I noticed in the budget presentation that the minister decided to uphold that fiscal benchmark whereby wage increase should not be more than 30%. The wage bill should not be more than 13% of your GDP. But on the other hand, no consideration was given to the other fiscal rules. And I'm wondering why. Yeah, because when we look at the IMF report, specific recommendations were made for the government in order to address this issue of fiscal sustainability. Yeah? And in the presentation, I did not see much being said about how the government decides to restore fiscal sustainability. Yes, I agree that there's a current account surplus, but when you add a new line item, strategic initiative, I don't know what that means. So unless somebody explain to me what strategic initiative means, that could be, if it is a current expenditure, it can convert into a current account deficit, and not a surplus. So that has to be explained. The second point I really want to address, Colin, and a bit in terms of the IMF report, recommendations for long-term growth, resilience, and institutional capacity. And 5 items were identified as critical to achieving this. 1, facilitate domestic investment geared towards deepening the tourism integration into the local economy in order to increase value added. We are talking about increased growth, but that growth is taking place in a sector that is not generating any foreign exchange, and it is highly capital intensive, input intensive. Yeah. So we cannot rely on that trajectory of growth in order to sustain our economic development. There must be a refocusing towards development of the rural economy. I look at the budget allocation for agriculture, and I'm asking, is that adequate to sustain, to support a viable rural economy? Most of the employment that exists, Colin, is really in the rural sector. And a lot of people have resorted to doing their own little farming because the commercial farming activity is becoming non-existent. Yeah, and these people are not included in the labor force of it, so therefore unemployment definitely will be low. Mm-hmm. But are these people living? Are they earning what they call a living wage? And hence the reason when they complain that there is growth, but they're not feeling it. But ask yourself why? Because the growth is concentrated in a certain sector where a few enjoy the benefits, and the majority at the bottom do not achieve anything. So when the IMF said that we should do a restructuring of our tax system, it is aimed to achieve what they call rebalancing, so that the burden of taxation will fall not on the poor class of people who cannot afford, but those who are making the money from the growth. They should be paying the higher taxes, but I did not see any attention being given to that yet. Mm-hmm. Rebalancing your fiscal measures. For example, the big construction workers, those with big vehicles, they are the ones making the money, big construction workers. Yeah? Why can government consider what you call a road rehabilitation tax, so that the owners of those vehicles should be called upon to pay something more in order to maintain our roads, because they are the ones destroying our roads. They're getting money and they're destroying our roads. And the poor people at the bottom end don't get much. So restructuring of your taxation system should be critical in moving forward. You just can't continue as you're going before. There must be a restructuring of taxes. So at least the incidence, the tax burden must fall on those who are making more. And I'm saying that the people in the construction, I mean those big construction, big contractors, they are the one making money. Their vehicles are the one destroying our roads, but we are doing nothing to address that.
Okay.
But yet, not getting that benefit.
All right, let me just have Mike.
But actually providing benefits for those who really get it.
Yeah, let me just have Mike respond to a couple of things, but not necessarily directly to Tony. And you can if you wish, but what was in the budget? Because I'm not sure if you can just hear if we heard any new proposals for either new or non-traditional revenue streams as we looked at the budget. So we're looking now at the creativity of the budget, because both Max and Tony pointed to a lot of the same old, but not necessarily innovation. So what can we look for in the budget itself or upcoming presentations that will speak of new revenue streams, non-traditional sources?
Right. So you see, I would liken the budget to building a house or building a structure. Right. You start with the foundation. Right. So you start with your foundation. So you do your substructure. Then you have to do your superstructure. So you have to start building your external walls and so on. then you have to start building your roof, you have to start building your internal walls, you have to start putting your windows and doors. So if you look at the budget and you read the budget from that perspective, what you see the government is doing, or the government has said, is that we are building, or we are transforming a sector. And to transform the sector, we are doing X, Y, and Z. So look at Project Polaris, for example. All right? Project Polaris, I can talk about Project Polaris in budget 2025 and not talk about it in 2026, right? So that is you're building on what? So you're building on what? Your foundation, right? So you're putting up your superstructure now. You're putting up your walls, right? So you've secured the land, right? You secure the financing, or you basically almost secure the financing and so on. You do your designs. You're looking to get a supervision consultant. You're looking to get your contractor. You're going to break ground, and then you go see construction work on the ground, right? So you will see that, for example, under the health sector, in terms of transforming the health sector and moving the health sector forward, right? You look at mental health, for example, right? You look at, okay, mainstream mental health into the primary health care, and so you look at, for example, the Maribo center that you're going to build out, and so basically, where are we with that? We are in the process of basically starting the building and building out and so on, and once you do that, of course, you're going to have that system in place and so on. You go in education, right? You look at the digital transformation, for example, where you have your laptops to your Form 1 and Form 2 students and so on. Next year, you're going to bring in your additional laptops. You're going to give the new Form 1s that are coming in and so on. And if you look at how the budget structure, it says that these are the things that we have accomplished. We are going to build on that. We are going to go further. We are going to dig deeper. So it means that you're going to build on these foundational things.
But if you notice, in your examples, you refer to spend.
Right.
I think where we're going is one of revenue.
Right. So revenues, and I think Max made an important point about revenues. Right? If you look at the revenues, what the government has done in terms of the economy is look to diversify the economy. So you have a tourism, right? You have creative economy, and you have culture. Those were not presented. If you look at past budgets, those are presented separately. In fact, culture probably are now another ministry, right? You look at how you could add value. I think Mr. Boatswain made the point as well. How do you add value to the tourism sector? And we can see you can add value by the creatives, right? You can add value by through culture, through your big drum, through your saraka and so on. How do you then make that become part of your tourism product so that when people come here, they have something to do? Or you can, for example, your products and so on, right? What are you doing in terms of your products? Right? So when these things happen, in terms of creating new tourism products or reimagining existing ones, it means that will then shift your revenue by bringing additional resources into tourism culture, and you have added value. You could take another sector, say the blue economy. Before you say fisheries. Right? And fishing, probably look at just fishing, and you build a fad here, and you give some support in terms of nets or whatever you give, right? But you're looking at blue economy in terms of your marine assets, or all your marine assets, yeah, and how you can ensure that you develop all of those assets and so in a coordinated and comprehensive way. So in a sense, you're diversifying your economy, right? You're expanding that base, and of course you have the transformative sectors that you're working on, and you're pushing those as well. And of course, when COVID came, and not COVID, sorry, burial came, and you had to treat it burial. One burial goes all the way, then that falls behind, and then of course you continue to push and so on. So revenue streams will come on. For example, with the issue of oil and gas. Once the government that reaches a point where you can realize revenues from oil and gas in terms of selling your data and so on, that will be part of the revenue streams that will come into the budget. You will have that progress and so on in terms of how you treat with your oil revenues and so on, either from exploration or whatever. Those are things that will come in eventually. So that is part of your process of building, but you won't see them appear out of nowhere. It has to be systematic. It has to be in a coordinated and and deliberate way in terms of moving from point A to point B.
I noted as you mentioned, the blue economy and marine, the emphasis, I believe there were 2 references to the Melville Street port. What is the vision for that?
Well, the Melville Street port is basically to, and the minister will speak more to that, but the idea is basically that you reclaim the lands there. That's closer to where the Lacroix area there. You reclaim the lands there, and of course you have I don't want to speak probably too much on that because the minister will speak. You have the issues with the boats on the carronage, for example. How do you treat with all of that in terms of ensuring that the carronage could be restored, and everything around that, and perhaps having commercial spaces and so on. That is the idea. But the Ministry of the Blue Economy, the Minister of the Blue Economy, and so will speak more in terms of the actual physical scope and of the project and so on.
Now, what I wanted to hear is the addressing of the carronage. This is why.
Well,
all right. Let me just ask, and I'm going to just put this out there before I know it's almost time for a second break, and then we get into some of the sectoral things. I did not hear anything, and I may have missed it, for St. Mark. We have branded St. Mark the poverty-stricken parish. It has carried that label for eons, and I have not heard, and again, maybe I missed it, any specific investment in St. Mark to assist with jump-starting that economy. Even if we know it's primarily fishing, certainly falling under agriculture, the investments that we heard was to its north and to its south, but not directly there. I mean, did I miss something, or can we understand?
And Mr. Boatswain raised the issue as well about rural development, right? So the budget speech spoke to that's the Rural Development Agency, that's RDU or unit, right? That they are in the process of rolling out a rural development strategy to support rural development, right? And so you have, for example, within that envelope, you have the BNTF project, for example, right? BNTF 11, where the Caribbean Development Bank has already approved $5 million for sub-projects within that area that will cover anything from water, sanitation, anything to do with poverty reduction and so on, right? There is another project that will replace the SIPE, that is the climate. SIPE is commonly called. I can't remember the acronym now. Yeah. Right? But that project is, of course, a poverty reduction project as well, that deals with the whole issue of enterprise development and climate smart agriculture. That's the name, yeah. Right? So that is part of the strategy as well within the context of that strategic plan. And then there are other things that they are doing now. So they're doing consultations. They had an initial presentation to the cabinet on that, and they are basically looking at the various interventions in the rural economy that will help stimulate, and that would include, as I said, that would include St. Mark's.
And this is why I'm deliberately asking whether there is a St. Mark strategy, because I'm with you in terms of poverty reduction, because that's general, and we'd have pockets of poverty all over. But if we have a parish that has been consistently branded as the poorest, is there anything in the budget that targets St. Mark's for its upliftment?
Well, that would come out of the strategy then, if I may. So the strategy has been developed, and the strategy will then speak to all of those issues. So right now we don't have a rural development strategy. You don't have a strategy that says to drive development in the rural area, you need to do X, Y, and Z. And so, for example, that project that the minister mentioned with respect to the breakwater project in Sates, that is in proximity to St. Mark's, right? To the extent that that project is developed in a particular way, right? You can drive commercial activity from St. George's, for example, where people don't have to leave all the way from country to come down for a job, but they can people from St. Mark's can go there. You have the project in Livera, for example. When that project becomes operational, you could have that kind of. So I'm saying within the context of that strategy, you will have a lot of these things. But in terms of the budget right now, for example, with respect to St. Mark's, you have the housing project there. The houses, they have not been distributed as yet. That's the Chinese supported housing. You have the GQuiz project. They have support there that they are putting with respect to ensuring that they have water in that particular area. And there are a number of other projects. I mean, they have the Bonnet Bridge and some of the other things that were actually developed there. But beyond that, of course, fishing, as you rightly said, and some of the other activities there. But the strategy, to my mind, will address some of those things, because the strategy now is one that is being built from the ground up. So I'm sure you will hear in the coming, maybe in the coming year, you would hear some of the interventions that would address specifically intervention in St. Mark's.
Viewers and listeners, it's time for a second break. So we'll take the break, and when we come back, I'll start off with you, Tony, and then we will have some the opportunity for callers to call in. We'll be right back.
Distributed by Limited. Visit us on the Lansopine Main Road or call 405-4818.
Are you thinking of where to shop this Christmas? Then look no further. The best place to shop is at Dominic Shopping Center, Wharf St. John. There you'll find everything you need. Name it, they have it. From household items, toys, decorative lights, appliances, portable AC units, cosmetics, hair and skin products, formal and casual wear, shoes, slippers and sandals, bed sheets, kitchenware, greeting cards and more. With 2 locations, Central and Depredine Streets, Wharf St. John. Call 444-9221 and 444-8804. The management and staff of Dominic Shopping Center wish everyone an enjoyable Christmas and a prosperous 2026. Dominic Shopping Center, the best in the West.
Greater convenience, smarter control. That's the power of myaccount.grenlec.com.
Pay your electricity bill online.
Submit service requests. View your billing history. And with e-billing, going paperless has never been simpler.
Sign up at myaccount.grenlec.com for access anytime, anywhere.
Are you looking for a reliable, affordable, and customer-friendly pharmacy? Look no further than Hills and Valley Pharmacy, the nation's leading healthcare products and services provider. We are committed to serving you at convenient locations. Find an extensive and affordable selection of prescription and over-the-counter drugs and medical supplies at Church Street, Hillsborough, Carriacou, Jubilee Street, Grenville, St. Andrew, near the bus terminal, and Halifax and Grenville Street, St. George. Our committed team is always available to offer valuable assistance for managing your health and wellness. Discover the additional benefits of our wholesale distribution on Halifax Street and our Medcare Center on Grenville Street, where we provide in-house physiotherapy, massage therapy, doctor consultations, and eye care services. Our commitment is to satisfy all your healthcare needs, including competitive prices, loyalty rewards, and special discounts for seniors. Contact us at 435-6904 and WhatsApp 535-4734. Choose Hills and Valley Pharmacy. Remember, your health is our business.
Megaforce Promotions, in proud collaboration with Ariza Credit Union and GBN, presents Grenada's biggest flea market at Monroe's Plainfield, Saturday 21st and Sunday 22nd December, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. daily. Shop unbeatable deals on bed and curtain sets, appliances, household items, electrical and plumbing supplies, toys, Christmas decorations, clothing and shoes, perfumes and colognes, wines and drinks, and just about everything else. Plus a kids area, live entertainment, food and drink stalls. Want to be a vendor? Call 440-4646 to book your spot before they're all gone. Admission $5. 2 full days of deals and more deals. Shopping, fun and savings. Monroe's Plainfield Flea Market. Don't miss it.
viewers and listeners, we're discussing the 2026 budget presentation. Before we left off, we were talking about investments, rural investments to jumpstart the rural economy, and the question really was about St. Mark as stable. But I believe, Tony, you had a contribution you wanted to make on the rural investments?
Yes. This talk about St. Mark being the poorest priority, that's just a myth. That's been perpetuated for some time. Really, I do not subscribe to that. But let's go back to rural development. Way back in 2006, the government of China decided to finance the construction of the yacht marina and port in Sates, where the breakwater is right now. Yeah? That breakwater was supposed to be the first phase of that project. But since then, nothing has happened. Yeah? And I think if we're talking about rural development, a project of that nature would really transform not only St. Patrick, but Northern St. Andrew and St. Mark. Because here you have a yacht marina, the port, easy connection between Sates and Carriacou on the islands. Yachts coming from all the way down Ponsolines, having to go to the Grenadines. Sates was an excellent overnight port. The folks in the tourism industry gave full support to this project, and up to today, that project has not materialized. And I'm asking why. You go to St. Lucia, there's a place called Rodney Bay in the north. Nothing was there. But a similar activity took place in terms of developing a port there, and now Rodney Bay has transformed the northern part of St. Lucia. The question is, why we undertake even one big project that will have that multiplier effect of transforming the rural sector of our country? That is critical if we're talking about transformation of the rural sector. But then again, we cannot speak about development if we do not address the issue of manpower constraints. We have unemployment coexisting with critical skill shortages. We have to import skilled labor. The question is, why can't we come up with a mass plan where we can provide support to New Hope and other training facilities to undertake a crash program to train our unskilled workers? Because that's the main problem we're faced with.
Right.
But not high unemployment coexisting with critical skill shortage. You cannot transform a country with that situation. And I was hoping that in this budget, I would see a program designed to address the deficiency in our manpower in terms of skills. And it's not there.
Let me ask Dowe.
The normal secondary school expansion. Listen, man, we have a number of our primary schools are almost empty, less than 100. Why can't government say, listen, some of the schools let us transform into training centers? Yeah, a lot of them, Shantima School less than 100, Roman Catholic School in Sates about 100, River Sally. What are we doing? And we have young people who do not have skills to take on the jobs that are available. We have to import labor. That is ridiculous. Any serious budget should make that a priority. Breaking that constraint, manpower constraint, because without that, we ain't going to know. We could talk endlessly, but unless we address the manpower shortage in Grenada, of development will be stymied.
All right, Max, can you, as someone in the private sector, if you don't want to just weigh in on the skill shortage and making a distinction, and like Tony made a distinction between the unemployment rate and the shortage of skilled labor, because one might be working, but might be underemployed in some cases, or it's just that we still remain short.
No, I fully agree, Colin, that we have a overall labor shortage to begin with across the board, and then we have a skilled labor shortage, right? But to Minister Boatswain's point earlier, and I call him Minister Boatswain because everybody seems, so I'm joining that truck.
I could do that.
I'm joining that truck here.
That's all right.
So as you know, he made the point about the taxation, right? And I do believe what we have here now is a little bit one-sided, but differently to what Minister Boatswain indicate, right? We have a skill shortage within Grenada. I understand to fix that we are competing regionally and internationally for skilled labor, right? And we have to get it to make it attractive as to why someone will want to work in Grenada skilled. When you have other islands, I don't want to name them, they have low or no income tax. Right. So when you watch your gross and your net, your take home is way better working in one of these islands than working in Grenada. Right. We have local Grenadians that are leaving Grenada to work in these same islands because of the issue of income tax. And I fully agree to the point, of course, to whom much is given, much is expected. But Grenadians across the board, I think we should look at that, should contribute. Because if you look at the labor shortage now in particular, there are persons before, years gone by, everybody wanted to work in the big institution, the banks, the Grenleg, the Nawasas, and so, right? But now you're getting persons skilled and they say, okay, hey, listen, I can be an entrepreneur now, where if I open my own business, the tax structure that govern a business, I could get more done that way than being employed. Right. So that in itself is adding to the labor shortage issue, where people say, listen, instead of working now, I want to open my own business and I do consulting. Because when I get consulting, if I'm renting this place or if I buy a building, the interest I pay in the bank, I get credited as an expense. If I work in my loan, I ain't getting no claims or no credits back on that front. So people are leaning towards, people are heavily leaning towards that side. And then as time gone by, where the government has invested heavily in the creative sector, whereas before you might have a young man or young lady singing soca in August, but working a full-time job. Right. Now soca and the music industry, I want to say soca, the music industry has gone so big where that could be a full-time job now. Right. Persons are on the creative side, the same historic jobs before, where was the banks and this person not creative. I have a number of friends that are doing very well in that same industry. Right. So we have the emergence of these new jobs, coupled with the fact that the tax structure, if you're a skilled labor, the tax structure could be a burden. Right, a person gravitating to entrepreneur.
If you're an employee.
And that's if you are an employee. That's
because if you're working independently, then there are creative ways of avoiding not evading.
I want to stay. I use a creative word once a night. I don't want to use it twice. But we have to look at that. And as I say, the government. It's not a love topic to bring, but Grenadians need to understand that if you are patriotic and you love Grenada, regardless of if you're earning $100, you could be able to contribute $1. People easy to say, Grenadians are across now seeing that, the wonderful thing Grenadians doing. The OECS, the swimmers a wonderful job in Oasis. Everybody's happy. For Carifta, everybody's wearing the flag and be happy. We have local artists last couple of weekends on the international stage on the cruise, Uber Cruise and Miami Carnival. These artists are doing well. I hear Grenadians say, these artists raise my nose and raise my hair on my skin. But if you're raising that, then let's look to raise the taxes so the $1, $2 you give, it could contribute to these further development as well. So we have to look at broadening the threshold. And of course, the higher end would naturally contribute more because, of course, it's a percentage of the income. But we need to look at and how ways that we could just reduce the base. And I say allow, right? Because I say allow because if you are indeed a patriotic concerning Grenada, you don't mind giving 50%. I'm going to say 50 cents or $1 of every $100 towards the development of Grenada. And we need to look at that ways. And I think if you look at relooking the whole tax structure that governs income tax, we may see the retention of a lot of Grenadians not leaving to work overseas, and we also see a lot of skilled labor coming in, because development comes with that.
Right.
If you're developing at a rate, you need people, and you need skilled people to support that development. So I think that we have to look at.
We heard, Mike, of the HR deposit within the audit, within the health sector. Is this something that's widespread? Because both the points being made by Tony and Max and the need for skilled labor, we need to identify where those shortages are and be able to train for them. The health sector apparently has done this, I guess prompted by Project Polaris, both in terms of physicians, nurses, announcement with the reintroduction of a national nursing school. Are we seeing this in other sectors?
Well, the Ministry of Education and the Department of Public Administration, I think they are working on something. I don't want to speak to it because I don't have the details, but I do believe that something is in the works. So perhaps when you get perhaps the Minister of Education or to ask that question.
He escaped. He was here last week, actually.
It might be a good question, but no, it's an important point. I mean, you have to have an audit to basically take stock of where you are and how you need to prepare yourself for the future.
Let me also ask
work as well.
Precisely. Let me also ask this, because we talk about rural development and etc. Is there a transportation strategy to fuel development? If we can't move people, we can't have development. And we're not moving people efficiently as it stands now. So speak to us, is there anything in the budget outside of the reduction in parts to keep the bus fares down? What is the national transportation strategy? And I did not hear, and maybe the Minister of Education will mention it, or the Minister for Transportation, the private sector collaboration for the movement of school children. I know there was a pilot project that was ongoing, but there was no mention of the successes of these events.
Right. Well, I think the government has said that they're looking to run the pilot towards the end of the year, and then to inform the larger strategy for that program. So that was mentioned in the budget. So again, once the pilot is expended, then
okay. You're talking for the school children?
Yeah.
I thought that was already running. So that's
no. So that's the pilot. The pilot is running.
Okay, so that's what I was referring to.
So okay. Right. So I'm saying the pilot is running. There was a timeline, I think, at the end of September.
Okay.
And then the government took a decision to extend that to the end of the year.
Okay.
To be able to gather more information to then inform the larger transportation project. So that is what was mentioned in the budget speech. And of course, in terms of the whole issue of transportation, there was quite a bit that was mentioned in respect of the role that the Grenada Transport Commission will play in terms of reimagining the whole transportation system. So there's in fact, CDB has funded a study that sort of helps support what you do in terms of that sector. And so it's very important to be able to move people. If you can't move people, and if you have gridlock and traffic jam and so on, of course productivity is going to suffer significantly. So that is an important part of the strategy. Of course, the government has said, and I'm in terms of the broader picture, because you wouldn't have all of that details in the budget. Of course, working with the association and so on in terms of and looking at the laws in terms of strengthening the laws, because of course roadside parking and so on, those are issues that you have to resolve, and a lot of these things are wrong transportation. Perhaps even having some electric buses and so on, and having a new framework around that to be able to help drive that particular sector, because what you see happening now in Grenada is basically buses that are running on routes that are profitable to them, and then you have a lot of places where, of course, you don't have routes, and then in terms of the timing, you don't have a lot of buses running beyond an hour.
Correct.
Of course, we have the local Uber, as you go.
Yes.
So these are things that will grow with time, and of course will solve part of the transportation problem to getting people around and so on. But it is something that the Transport Commission is driving, and of course I'll let them speak to the details of that.
Okay. Max, just on. We heard a number of things, and I think Tony pointed it as well. The look back within the budget. But did you hear anything that spoke to the successes of these interventions, which is why we will continue to invest in them? So for example, just to go to education, free tuition, TAM-CC, NULO, education up to age 18. We didn't necessarily hear anything. What is the participation rate and how that has translated into additions to the labor market, etc. Would you want to hear from ministers moving forward more of, as Tony indicated, how and what are the gains that would allow us to say we can build on these interventions that have been introduced?
Correct. I mean, I think that is the most crucial part in terms of looking ahead, to understand, especially when you had pilot programs or you had things that new initiatives that you roll out, the success, and if not the success, the lessons. Because it's either you go good or you learn, right? So the lessons that came from it and how that now driving the conversation or driving the plan and what that contributes to the plan ahead is very much so. So we didn't hear aspects from with that. I mean, but I know they mentioned in particular, as you say, the health system. The minister did mention that we think we're looking to reignite or restart the nursing school. Understand that is to support the bigger project, Project Polaris. So that is a welcome venture. I think he mentioned some other university and some other program, but overall there's a lot of initiatives that happened this year. I know he mentioned that they happened, but to mention that they happened is one thing, but to mention what, again, the lesson to look ahead. I think he could have, done a job on, expound on that a bit more. And as you say, that in terms of the HR audit that you asked for, in terms of the vacancy that I pointed earlier within the public service, right? When you're looking at by the sectors, what's driving that? Health and funny enough, the police force was a big part of that overall vacancy within the public service. And in particular, now we're launching I know the government is doing initiative that we have the internship program that they launched with the nurses recently. The restarting of the nursing school is true, but we have to get ways. Understand now that Project Polaris is it's named as a game changer in the next couple of years. Understand that the vacancies that we have within the health service, then what are we doing? Again? What is the plan to fill that? It
probably comes back to what you said. If the remuneration is not competitive, we will continue to have that deficit.
Continue to have that. And we have to relook at it holistically. Again, as I say, in the region we're competing for the same pool of people. We have similar challenges always within the region, and we have to make it competitive to retain skilled and talented staff.
If I may, just before suppose to comment on the vacancies, we have to also bear in mind the part of the vacancies and the creation of new position has to do with the regularization that is ongoing, right? Because you have people in the system now that on various forms of contracts, right? That are not they are under a category called goods and services. If you look at in the budget, in terms of how the expenditure is categorized, they are under goods and services, right? So the positions that are created is to regularize those many of those positions, right? Based on the regulation and process.
So you're saying the jobs are being done, but it can't be listed based on the contractual agreement.
Is there a location?
Right. So part of not all of that, but part of a land share of that, right? So that has to be taken in the context as well. But in terms of the looking at, for example, the new jobs that will come on and based on what is happening and so on. Of course, I mean, the budget speech mentioned the whole issue of the centers of excellence in certain areas, right? To build skills, certain skill sets, right? You have, for example, the collaboration with SGU in terms of the doctors and so on, because of course you want to be able to move that process to when your new hospital open, you have staffing and so on. The nursing school that you mentioned in terms of revisiting the re-establishment, whatever that means in terms of some kind of arrangement around that, right? But I want to push back a little bit on the fact that the budget is not forward-looking, because as I said, I go back to the house, right? You have, and if you look at it, the language of the budget speech and how it is, it basically speaks to, we have done this. In 2026, we will go further, and beyond we will go further, and we will go further in so-and-so areas, including X, Y, and Z. So it also adds, right? So the scholarship thing is not going to be a one-year thing. If you have 20 scholarships, for example, this year, you expect that going forward you would continue to have, instead of the whatever currently obtained, whether it's 6 or 4 or whatever, you'll continue to have more of that, right? As I mentioned before, the laptops and so on, right? The centers of excellence in terms of hospitality and the mariculture sector and so on, even construction. You would have these things. You're building on these things. If you look at the section on some of the structural reforms, right? And you look at, for example, in the tax administration, the government is looking to sort of strengthen tax administration and collection, for example, right? With respect to the whole new tax system that we introduced, where you can now pay and do things online. We talk about, for example, in the area of digitalization and digital economy, right? All of the things that you are doing with respect to ensuring that a lot of the things that you do now become just a click away, as opposed to the traditional ways that you are doing it, and ensuring that you have the infrastructure to be able to drive.
Things like PIT and so increased, and local taxes increased, as mentioned in the budget. That was of interest, despite the fact that we have, well, I guess the reduction in unemployment probably would have added to that.
Yeah, so you have, I mean, sorry, the increase that you're seeing, I mean, for the most part is through customs, right? That's where you have a lot of the increases coming through in terms of the taxes on international trade and transactions. Right. Now, if you look at the domestic side, you probably will see, for example, property tax. You will see that decline in property. No, you decline because you remember
this year on year.
Year on year, and because you carry coup, if you recall, as part of the budget, the government removed property tax for personal carry. Of course, there are no buildings, and you clearly can charge you because of no buildings and so on. So this year you see a decline in property tax and so on. It's also tied to, for example, the sale of properties and so on by way of the property transfer tax. Okay. So one big transaction could give you a bump. Right. That is also an issue and so on. But
we have a caller, so let's just take this caller and then we'll get back to the conversation. Good evening, caller. Welcome.
Hello. Good night.
Yes.
I wish to say that for the last 30 to 40 years, Grenada has been, in terms of investment, not St. Patrick's, St. Mark's, and Andrew, St. John. It has been South St. George, the town of St. George and South St. George. And I hear an excuse that there is no rural development strategy. Is there a town development strategy or South development strategy? It tells me that the mentality, the people making the decisions do not consider places like St. Mark and St. Patrick and St. Andrew and the rural economy. People know that in the 90s we lost banana, and since then there is no strategy for rural development. Well, I would like to ask Mr. Sylvester, in a JICA report, which is the Japanese agency, in a March 2014 report, there is identified on page 94, 4.1, Waltham, and it says there civil works. It talks about the construction of a landing jetty, 40 meters, slope and pavement. It goes on with a priority of A. And there is identified there an approximate cost of 150 million yen. What has happened to that project? Why is it that taxpayers who pay taxes in St. Mark is not getting their fair share? Mr. Sylvester talked about the Bonnet project. Well, as far as we know in the budget, there is nothing identified under BNT to be done in 2026 in St. Mark. So let's stop making excuses and understand that the tax dollar must be spread to every part of India to the best of their ability. We don't expect to get an international putting affairs, but the breakwater project can develop. What are the excuses? We have the CBI program, and the CBI program was designed for what? For blue-eyed people to make money? For lawyers and the people who are licensed, accountants who are licensed to sell passports to get 30,000 US when they sell one passport. What is the salary being paid to people who work in the road? What is the salary being paid to the ordinary construction worker? We got to wake up and realize that, you know what, some of the ministries need to move from St. George to St. Andrew and St. Patrick, and then people living, working in those areas will understand, and then we will get projects and investment into those areas. So I'd like Sylvester to answer the question of that jetty. in the JICA, the Japanese International Agency report, and a 40-meter slope on pavement Geneva Waldo. What has happened to that?
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Well, I think the gentleman's asking the wrong person, but that project, I don't have that details, and that project was implemented through one of the ministries and so on. They would be able to provide that kind of information.
What I found interesting in the comment that I made is whether or not we have a developmental strategy. So we are talking the rural economy, but then the question is, was there a strategy for the town of St. George? And when you look at the town of St. George, one can see there has not been a strategy. Right. The South has grown, but one can ask whether or not there's a developmental strategy for the South, or there's things are just happening. And that is something I think as Grenada we probably need to take stock of. We almost quickly run out of time. Tony, I want to come to you. You can develop well, certainly make a statement in the last comment, but did you hear anything secondary processing? Because, as we listen to agriculture, as we listen to the comments on fisheries, is there anything for secondary processing in order for us to get value added? If you can address that in terms of your own thoughts, what you heard, and projections, and certainly give us your final comments for the evening.
Yeah, well, certainly that is one of the limitations in the budget. As I said, if you're looking at developing the rural economy, you have to look at secondary processing, and that is not taking place. That's how you get value added. Yeah. So I think that is one of the weaknesses that we have to deal with. But if maybe I want to make my closing remarks now?
Yes, you can go ahead. Yes.
Right. There are 4 issues I feel this budget should have given greater attention to. One, issue of skills training to eliminate manpower bottlenecks that exist right now. Without that, we are not going nowhere. We will only talk development, but we will have no development. When we look at the implementation rate, it is still way below the desired level. 60% implementation, that results in a lot of wastage, manpower, money, everything. So government must be bold enough to come up with a comprehensive plan as to how they can deal with the manpower shortage, either reinforcing or providing more resources to new or establishing critical skills training centers throughout the country, utilizing primary schools that are highly underutilized. It's a major initiative, but I think it's about time we look at that. Secondly, I think there's need for government to look at restructuring of the tax system. As it stands right now, the tax that we have, the VAT, is a regressive tax. The burden of that tax falls equally on those who could afford to pay and those who can't afford to pay. I'm saying that we should restructure the tax so that those who are earning a lot of money, especially in the construction sector, they should be made to pay, if not directly, but by imposing a tax, a levy on the heavy vehicles that they use and destroying our roads. Commercial vehicles should be paying an extra levy because of the damage being done to the roads. And the owners of these vehicles are the ones who are making the money, but yet, because of how the tax system is structured, they get away, as they will say, with more than not paying a fair share of tax. Thirdly, revitalizing the rural economy. That could be done in a number of ways, by providing greater linkage between tourism and agriculture, or by engaging in a strategic project like the breakwater project in Sotels. Why not develop the port and yacht marina? That could stimulate economic activity not only in St. Patrick, but as I said, in northern part of Grenada. And I use Rodney Bay in St. Lucia as an example of where a similar project was implemented with tremendous success. And finally, I would say the whole issue of, well, I think I mentioned the tax system. So I think these are the key areas I think I would like to see the budget focus on. And finally, fiscal sustainability. We cannot rely too heavily on investment, what is CBI, We have to develop more sustainable and reliable sources of generating income. CBI is good, it's great, but there are external forces that can destroy this thing overnight, and it will be disastrous for us. We have to be more self-reliant in terms of generating revenue. So these are my concerns.
Okay, thank you much, Tony. Max, as you reflect in terms of giving your own closing comments, if you can just talk a little bit about, because Tony mentioned sustainability, but let's just talk about the energy and the cost of energy, renewables, solar, etc. If you can build that in, and then certainly your closing comments and what you look forward to hearing from the individual ministers as they go deeper into the budget.
In terms of electricity costs, and the cost of energy, that's in the private sector, and particularly the manufacturing sector, that's a big cost. It's impact all industries. And in the budget, the minister mentioned that there is a 1%, and I can't remember the amount, is $50 million or so, but there's a fund available and a 1% interest to help bolster businesses that want to go into the solar energy. I think that's a good move, because sometimes the issues, 1% is low, next very low rate. The chance sometimes is the outlay of cash to recoup. Right, a lot of business do not have the $400,000 just sitting around that they could put down to invest in solar panels to recoup in 4 and 5 years. Right. So having this fund available where you're paying this low rate to get the solar, that's very good, and it will help. It definitely help with the cost of electricity and the manufacturing. And the regulations, there are some regulations around it that the PURC, the PURC, the PURC is still working around in terms of commercial businesses being able to do provide electricity to the grid and be a power producer. I don't think that has been walked around, or that has been iced out as yet, but I think that is a move to win the right path, because a lot of commercial business, a lot of businesses with roof, right? I would say solid roof, because we have to build with solid roof with the climate that we're in. So we have a lot of business with solid roof that could invest and have additional sources to send back to the grid. So fine-tuning that regulation will definitely help, as well as the fund that's available. Looking forward, the ministers this week, they will get down to the nitty-gritty of the respective areas and present as needed. You mentioned the transportation, and I had it to mention earlier. I think that is very important, because that not only bolsters economic activity, but it helps with productivity. Companies now could look at running 2 shifts because persons have ways to get back home, so the transportation and the work being done around the public transportation, that need to come out powerfully. I saw they made a mention that they're subsidizing, I think, some of the buses, the structure, the whole, the way, and again, what we do on the public transportation, that needs to come forward. So I'm looking forward for that. Project Polaris is a big one. So looking to see how that maps out. I know we're looking to break ground in 2026. The details around that plan, and again, because of the nature of business I am in, of course, anything relating to housing and construction for me will definitely have my interest. So looking forward for that. But if I give my closing one time, overall, I think it was a good budget. As I said, that the fact that it basically had the numbers since March, right? So ideally we could start the 2027 conversation now if that record continues. So I would say nothing surprising. For the most part, the numbers are there, the direction, the consistent direction to Vision 75 is there, and I think the minister presented it, and I was looking forward to see the ministers deep dive into the areas in the next coming days. ways.
All right. Mike, I know it was sleepless nights. You have handed it over now, so the politicians take charge, but the technocrats have been working in the background. So your own closing comments of this budget and what you look forward to in 2026.
Yeah, well, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to be here, and of course to be with us, esteemed gentlemen, to have this conversation. I think it was a very useful and exciting conversation. But of course, I want to also recognize the staff of the Ministry of Finance and the budget preparation team for their hard work. They have worked tireless nights and so on in terms of trying to ensure internal consistency with the budget and the medium-term economic and fiscal strategy report and the debt management strategy and so on. It's a lot of work. I mean, I haven't actually done a compilation of the total number of pages that have been generated as part of this budget process, but it's not easy work. And so I think what the minister has done as part of his presentation is to present the comprehensive plan in terms of the record of the government, as well as the plans for the upcoming period. How I see it is as if you're building a house. And as I said, you start with start the foundation, you do your superstructure, and of course you do your roof, and then you will see that unfolding in terms of the important interventions and so on that were mentioned in my view. So I'll give an example. The government, for example, implemented the license, the reduction in the age,
right,
and the no exam upgrade, right, for a period. And if you look at what has happened in terms of the pool of employable drivers now that could actually go into a business, drive a sales van, go into construction and so on, and in fact go to as much as heavy equipment going forward. You're looking at that move from over 8,000 people to over 15,000 people. So that is in service transformation. So, right. So I'm saying in a way some of the and that's how I see it from what I see. Some of the things that are happening, they are not done in any vacuum way. There seems to be a bigger plan and strategy, and so that's how I see it from the presentation that was made by the minister. So that is my view. Again, of course, the debate will come, and you will hear many things. So I'm excited to hear the debate and the responses from all and sundry on the presentation.
But I think some of what you would have heard coming out tonight is the how-to and the successes, because the movement in terms of heavy equipment, licensed drivers from 8,000 to 15,000 is one of the things that we'd want to hear coming out in the debate. So they recognize that this investment was indeed transformational, and that has tangible effects when we get onto the ground in terms of people working and contributing. Permanent Secretary Mike Sylvester, thank you so very much. Jamari Max Hypolite, thank you. And former Minister Anthony Boatswain, thank you all so very much for joining us and contributing to this evening's decision of Beyond the Headlines. To you, ladies and gentlemen, as we say every week, you're the ones that make the program. So we certainly appreciate your giving up part of your Monday evening to be with us. And I look forward to being with you again in the next 6 days, 22.5 hours. Take good care. Have a wonderful week.